I have other people that do it, so there's that. So today, this is a sermon series. So this sermon series is faith in the middle of despair, right? And I don't know what that means to you all, but I surely know what it means to me when I wrote this. So I want you to picture this. It's 12 years ago. I'm in Southeastern University, and I am in this master's program with all these pastors, okay? And we're going through some theological stuff and everything else, and I'm sitting there saying, nope, don't belong here. I don't even understand why I even got into this thing. I didn't even know how I got accepted in, to be perfectly honest. Except Jesus, because Jesus said, you're going in there. I said, why? Now, he didn't want to give me the full story. So he's very kind. And he said to me, in the future, I'm going to have you going out to preach, which is still part of my future. He didn't tell me the little tidbit in between, that I was going to have to open up an actual church and actually speak. He didn't tell me that part, because he knows what would have happened. I would have run for the hills. I would. How people stand up there and say, oh, this is great, blah, 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 and they run into it. Well, all the power to you. I'm just not one of those people. First of all, I don't like standing up and talking in front of people. Second of all, I get stage fright, like you would not believe. Okay? She's sitting there looking at us like, no. No, you don't. If you only know the panic attack that goes on between him and I can't do this. And he's like, yes, you can. You can do everything through me. But this is the thing. I have gone through so much with Jesus that I know that he won't leave me. He just won't. He's been with me from a child. He's been with me midway. He's been with me now. He's still with me. And not once has he left me. Not once. Even when there are times when I wanted to leave him, there were times when I was just like, okay, I'm just done. I'm done. That's it. I'm done. He said, are you done? Yes, I am. I'm done. No, I'm not really, but I'm just saying it because I don't know what else to do. You can't blackmail God. He was always with me. So when he challenged me to go ahead and start this church and do all of this, I said, okay, I'll do it. But, I don't know. I'd have to come up with sermons every week and everything else. So this church has been open for a little over a year. And it was not until after Easter when he had me find, which I absolutely forgot, he took it out of my memory. When I was in school 12 years ago, he had me do 52 weeks of sermons. I thought I was being raked over coals, okay? Because I'm in this classroom where all these pastors, I didn't even know where to begin. People think it's really easy. You just write down a bunch of words, you come up here and talk. It really isn't that easy, right? You have to find the topic that he wants, not your topic, his topic. You have to know how to present it. You got to put it in a format so you could be able to, if not, you'll be all over the place. And I've seen some pastors all over the place. And sometimes I feel like I'm all over the place, right? So here it is. You have all these different things that you have to do, right? And in these classes, they taught all of it. Okay? And I thought that I was in this place where I'm not going to lie, I thought I was in hell. I did. Because let me just tell you this. Education-wise, it doesn't come easy for me, right? I haven't been formally diagnosed, but my father is dyslexic. My sister that passed away was dyslexic. Come to find out, apparently I have a little bit of something, right? Which is why certain things doesn't come to me as easily, and I lose my train of thought, and I put words where don't belong, and it just bounces all over the place for me. Well, I get to find out all these different things about me on top of being a chronic asthmatic and using high dosages of steroids for over 17 years. It messes with your brain. It messes with your body. It does all kinds of things to you. Well, my memory is like, before you guys got here, I was trying to remember what's the thing. It's a Chinese supplement, and I could not remember the name. And I said all kinds of words. Poor Alana did not understand what I was trying to say. Because I was saying, is it this? Is it this? I look over at my son and said, please stop. Just stop. I said, oh, he knows what I'm saying. Okay, great. My children have learned my language. So when I don't say the right words or I mean something else, they know what I'm trying to say. And they will get up and say, it's this. Because your name's Thelma. I'll call you Myrna. I'll call you Louise. I'll call you all kinds of things. I said, but it's that lady. What is her name? They're like, Thelma, Mom. Okay, great. That's my life, okay? And it doesn't happen to everybody, but your name killed me for years. I know, and I still don't get it right.
Charlene too.
Yeah, I still don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't call you Melissa. I don't do that. But I do. I mess up this poor girl's name. I'm so sorry. Because I'm very serious about names. People mess up my name, Susan. How do you mess up Susan's beyond me, but people do. They mess up my name. So I make a habit to try not to mess up people's name, and I mess it up every single time. Well, because of this thing that went on with what's going on in my brain, right, from the medication, it kind of makes things harder for me, right? So I get confused really quickly, right? And so I fight to keep all of my faculties together all the time. I fight to keep them all together. So when he says I have to come up here and do that, I said, oh, Jesus, because you know what that means? That means I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to stand up here, I'm going to make mistakes, and people are going to hear it and see it, and I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be exposed. There's nowhere to hide. For years, I hid behind my children. I can't hide anymore. So 12 years ago, he puts me in this school with all these big shot lawyers. It felt like lawyers, pastors. And they all, they had 20 years experience, 25 years, 30 years experience. And here comes little old me, thrown into this new world. And just let me tell you, I had the best classmates ever. Ever. When I wanted to quit, they didn't let me quit. There was two of them. I call them my Georgia boys. They drove from Georgia to come into Southeastern and Lakeland, right, to go to school. It was a special program. It was for 1 year. And again, I wasn't supposed to get into this program, but miraculously, I did. They even looked at me like, wow, okay, you got in. Well, that means God really wants you here. I said, I guess so, because I don't really want me here, but okay. And I was ready. Here I am, a single mom with my children, and I have to leave Brandon and drive and go to school and do all these different things. And let me tell you, in the master's program, you're required to read about 6 to 9 books a month. I can't even get through one, let alone 6 to 9 books. And these things weren't on audio. They weren't. And so it was so challenging. So I made up my mind one day. I came in and I said, that's it, Lord, I'm done. I can't do this no more. I feel like a fraud, an imposter around these people. All these people know this stuff. I don't. And he says, I need you here. I was like, I think I'm hearing wrong. Anytime when God wants you to do something, you don't want to do it, you don't hear right? All of a sudden, you don't hear it. It's not right. It can't be God because it goes against everything that you want, okay? And God says, I want you there. Says, no, I don't think you're saying that. Got to be the devil. He goes, right. The devil's going to tell you to go to school and learn about theology and learn more about my word. Well, then it's not you. No, it just can't be. And so I went into a meltdown. I drove to school. I was crying. I threw a tantrum. I did. I threw a tantrum. I got into class. I had my hood on. I put a hoodie on. I said, I'm not talking to nobody. And I just sat there. And here comes my two Georgia boys. They walked in with their Georgia accent, and they came up to me and they said, you planning to quit? No, you're not, and we won't let you. I was like, rude, just rude. Rude. And they said, God spoke to both of us. I want you to hear this. God spoke to each one of them. They rode together. Their whole trip from Georgia to Lakeland about me. I said, oh, that wasn't necessary. And he says, no, we need to talk, okay? You want to quit. You don't want to go down this road. They were telling me everything I felt. Let me tell you something. Fear is a powerful thing. When fear gets hold of you and grips your heart, it will cripple you. And I'm going to tell you what else cripples you, your mind. And both of them crippled me. And I'm going to tell you something. My biggest fight is my mind. Because my mind can take me into places. It just starts to race and race and race. And I'm right there with it. And I was recently accused, it's easier said than done, to make your mind push past. And look, it's not easy. Whatever I say, it's not because I think it's easy. It's because I've had to work at it. I've had to work at it to try and lay down my fears and push through the chaos in my brain to go ahead and stand with God. In spite of hearing, you're going to fail, you're going to this, all my past just comes and floods and grabs hold of me. And these two Georgia boys, they said to me, Susan, you have a call in your life. And God spoke to us about this call. I said, now why you gonna tell people my business for? Now they're in my face. And now, so he didn't stop there, God. He didn't stop there. And you have to love God because God doesn't stop when he's pursuing something new. And this was something new and something I did not ask for. I don't think you understand. I really did not ask for this. I told God I would like to serve him. I'll help a couple of homeless people. I'll feed a couple of people. I'll do little things here and there, whatever little charity work. But you want me to get up into people's face? First of all, you tell me that I have a prophetic anointing. So I got to tell the people about themselves. People get angry. People get upset because I know things. I go through it all the time. People always get upset because I know things. What people don't realize is that I don't ask. He tells me. And I don't make it a habit of telling him what to do. I may joke about it, but I really don't tell him what to do. And here it is. He told these two men, and they just sat down, they ministered to me, and I just sobbed. I sobbed. And then he wasn't finished with me. He made sure that the teacher came in, and the teacher singled me out and spoke a prophetic word over me. The entire class was like, yes, we all know. I was like, oh God, I'm the only one. They all know my business except me. And I'm sitting there like, are you kidding? He goes, I want you to understand, Susan, how much I am calling you to do this. I know you don't want to. I know what you struggle with. I know. He said, but can I tell you, I need you to stop being selfish. I said, oh, that hurt. I don't like to think of myself as being selfish. I help people. He says, but you're being selfish because you want to hold on to the gift that I've given you and not share it with others because you're scared. I'm your God. So here it is. I took one of these classes and they asked for 52 weeks worth of sermons. I can't even come up with one. Well, guess what? My Georgia boys, they helped me. So they helped me understand what the teacher was saying and the outline. And so on breaks, they're like, Susan, this. I'm like, okay, I got to fake it until I make it. That's my definition. Fake it until you make it. And then they said this to me. They said, Susan, if God has called you to this journey, and obviously he has, if we all know it, including a teacher who's never seen you before, then he's going to give you what you need when you need it. Well, I sat down to try and do these 52 weeks things and everything. And one of them that I did was faith in the middle of despair. And that one was a 5-week sermon, part of the 52 weeks. And when he first started me with this, he said to me, I'm going to have you preach this. And I said, when? He goes, I want you to tell your story. You have stories to tell, and I want you to tell them. He said, I didn't allow you to go through the things that you've gone through in your life just for it to just sit with you, Susan. It's to help people where they are and help them understand that you truly understand where they are. And for them to know that I'm not going to leave them, no matter what crisis comes up. So there was birth, faith in the middle of despair. So now today, it's the 3rd week of faith in the middle of despair, and we have 2 more weeks. And he's going to end with something. He's not really letting me in on that part, but okay. So when I pulled up week 3, now what? What do we do? I have the outline. How you want me to go? He goes, don't worry about it. When you get up there, I'll tell you what to say. You see all that? I didn't plan all that. It just started. That's why poor Matthew's like, I didn't even start anything yet. The film hasn't rolled, because he just had me just go. It's go time. I open my mouth and it just comes out. That's what happens when you allow God to speak and you take you out the way. When you say yes, you see that song, Yes? God requires more of thee. He does. Sometimes we go through things and we say goodbye to people and we say goodbye, but then there's a new door that's about to open. There's always new doors. When one door closed, there's always a new door that God opens. The question is, are you ready for that new door? Me personally, I always say, no, I'm not. Because honest to God, I never feel like I am ready. But this is the thing. We don't want to, first of all, I don't want to get arrogant to think that, oh yeah, I got this, and then I'm going there and flop and fall on my face. Because that can happen. I've seen that happen to people. But I always want to give God the glory. This has nothing to do with Susan. It does not. This is about Jesus. Now, I'm not like all those other preachers out there. I don't preach a certain style. I'm preaching Susan way. I get up here and I say what God tells me to say. That's the prophetic / preach Susan way. Because that's the only way he made me, and that's who I have to be proud of. Do you know what I'm saying? You got to be proud of who God made you to be and don't be somebody else. Yeah, I would love to be a T.D. Jakes. I always say that too. I say, oh, I'm trying to make it like T.D. Jakes. He always pulls out these great stuff. He said, but you're not T.D. Jakes. I was like, right, but he always pulls out these great points. Like I would like one day pull out a great point and be like, ah. He goes, oh, so you want it to be about you. I said, you always get me on something. You always get me. He goes, Susan, I don't want you to be anybody else less than you. You, that's it. You have your own teaching style. It does not matter if a person doesn't like your teaching style, then obviously that's not for them. And that's it. If they cannot see past certain things and not see what I'm trying to tell them about themselves, what they need to do, that's something that they have to deal with. That's nothing to do with you. You don't try to be somebody that you are not. Just be you. So, I didn't prepare anything to come on the screen except for this and one other slide. I am going to read 3 scriptures. And then I'm going to hand out something because God has something to say about faith in the middle of despair and what happens when fear grips hold of us. So the first one is Luke 17, verse 6. Luke 17, verse 6. The Lord answered, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to the mulberry, 'May you be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey." The next one is Matthew 17, verse 20. Matthew 17, verse 20. "You don't have enough faith," Jesus told them. He was speaking to the disciples at the time. "I tell you the truth. If you have faith even as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it would move. Nothing would be impossible." The third verse, I'll read towards the end. So, what is Jesus saying in these two verses? How deep is your faith? And how strong is it? Now, he had me put together a little packet. So I'm going to give out.
Oh, thank you.
You think you need more? Felicia, give over. Thank you. Your favorite. So I've just given out mustard seeds. God wants everybody to take a look at the mustard seeds. Look how tiny they are. What is impossible if you have faith? God is saying to have faith even as small as a mustard seed. I want you to look at each one of those mustard seeds and look at them as a problem or a situation in your life that you have to have faith for. So many different situations that you've had to have faith for. Each mustard seed represents that much is what you need to have faith for that situation. We must go through trials in order for our faith to grow. It's impossible for our faith to actually grow unless we go through things. So we plant the mustard seed, and then the mustard seed goes into the soil, it gets watered, and it takes root, and it grows. It grows because it's being fed by water and the soil and everything else. Well, for us, in order for our seed to grow, we have to go through. But we also have to believe. But he's not asking you to be like a whopping huge. He's asking you to have that little bit of seed of faith. If you have that little bit of seed of faith, it can grow into something bigger. I start off my life having just next to nothing of faith. And God has sent me through so many trials in my life that now my faith has grown. I can walk through some things. That's why I can say, push it aside and stay focused and watch what God does, because I know what that feels like. When you go through enough trials, it's going to grow. So when you look at the mustard seed, you can't even imagine that this thing is going to turn into a tree. Matthew, can you bring up the tree? That's what it turns into. A mustard seed turns into this. One mustard seed turns into that much faith. What started as a tiny little thing, look at it, so tiny, produces that. That is the faith that God is asking for. Believe that little bit, and you're going to see how he's going to make it grow inside of you. He is going to make the trials and all the things that has happened to you and gone through will develop this faith that is going to be enormous. It's going to grow into that. It's going to grow into a tree where you can go forth and tell people, my God, he was there for me. Let me tell you how big he is. Let me tell you what he can do for me and he can do for you. The troubles we go through molds us. There is a process that we have to go through. It's called a refining process. We have to go through these things. In Proverbs 17:13, it says, fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but God tests the heart. Listen to me. When we go through the fire, just like silver and gold, it's impurities that are burned off. So the fire gets so hot. Sometimes trials can be so hot that it just burns. It burns off the impurities, so you can now mold the silver or the gold to what you want. It turns into liquid. The impurities are burned off, and you're able to pour it into the mold, and it takes form. That's what God is doing with all of us. He's burning off the impurities through the trials that we are going through, and he's asking us to have faith. Have faith in the middle of despair. Now, this week I had to walk through some things. It was very trying for me. I walked through something that it was breaking my heart. But I walked through an end of a marriage with someone. I was there in the beginning of their marriage, and I was there at the end of the marriage. What a trial that is. But God never leaves. He doesn't. And the party that I was with, that person went deeper for God. The other person, who I knew longer, is not. That's his personal walk. That's between him and Jesus. I can't control those things. But that morning that I had to get dressed and go with them to the courthouse, and I stood there, this is what the Lord said to me. He says, do not think I do not weep at the end of a covenant. He wept at the end of a covenant. He did. He wept. And he showed it to me. He said, all because knees weren't bowed. One party, knee bowed, but in order for it to work, both parties' knees have to bow. He didn't keep the faith of the mustard seed. He didn't keep it. The other party, he did not keep it. He did what he wanted. He stayed in a selfish place. He did what he wanted, and he went what he wanted. It's just, I want what I want, what I want. That's what we live in this world of. I want what I want, what I want. Then stop to think about the consequences of action. But you know what? God is still with him, as God is with her. And I sat there. And I'm going to tell you, I saw how this person has changed, the wife. The wife has changed so much over the years. And I've been watching. And I've been watching for years of what's been going on in this marriage. And here it is that I'm here now watching it dissolve. So now we go inside. Now, I'm going to tell you, I wasn't supposed to go inside. I literally saw the bailiff tell this guy who tried to go in with his parents, he says, oh no, only you go in to see the judge. That's it. Right? And I was like, oh, I can't. God said, shh. I was like, he said, don't say anything. Just be quiet. I said, okay, because I was about to say, oh, I'm with her. Blah, blah. He said, don't say anything. Just stand there. I said, okay. He says, just like everything else in your life, Susan, you're going to go into places that you don't even know how you got in there. Sure enough, I got ushered in. Sat down too. Okie dokie, sat down. Right there looking at the judge. Judge looked at me and he goes, and you are? I said, spiritual advisor. That's what I was told to say, and I did. And he says, well, that's really good. Everybody needs to learn that. Yep, that's really good. The nicest judge ever. And this is what God said to me in there. He says, I needed you to be in there because I needed her to know, to feel the actual body next to her, to know that I am with her in this journey. Faith in the middle of despair. She had the most tiniest faith, and it's now growing. And God allowed me to be in there, not only to witness, but to intercede and pray and to be there for this young woman. And God was there. Do you understand that God will be there for you? Once you have the most tiniest faith, he will be there for you. You just have to allow him to. Listen, I got ushered in. Didn't nobody else get to go in? Only me. Because guess what? Jesus walks with me. Jesus said so. And so I went in. I wasn't in there to do anything but sit there beside her. That was it. I'll just, 1, 2, 3, boom, it was done. Less than 5 minutes, over and done with, we were out. Just like that, a covenant is done. The covenant was done a long time ago, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just a legal technicality at that point, but the covenant was done. The covenant was broken a long time ago, unfortunately. But you see, that mustard seed that that young woman is walking with has grown such a huge faith in her. And I can't tell you how ever so proud I am of her. At the same time, my heart breaks to see the other side because I do know him too and knew him longer. And it breaks my heart because I invested a lot of time and a lot of prayers. I still am hopeful that at some point that he will grab a mustard seed and see it and hold on to it and say, I will have the faith to believe, even though I don't know where this is going. I prayed for him. I prayed that he would find it. When we go through the fire, we are never alone. God is there with us, trying to go ahead and burn off those impurities, burn off those things that we want to hold on to, called, those strongholds and those mindsets that we have. He's trying to take those things off of us. And here it is. We don't even realize that he's testing our heart because our character will be formed in this through difficult trials. So I'm going to tell a story about myself. So when I got here to this state, I was learning. I went through all these different things. As you know, I said I went to Southeastern. I did all these different stuff and everything. But one of my biggest things were when I was living in Orlando, I was able to get the finances to get a house. I got a house. Now you have to remember, I am born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And with that, back then I had the mindset of a New Yorker. I no longer have that mindset. I am trying to have the mindset of Jesus, not of an environment. As living in New York, I learned through hard trials of my life, I had to learn to fend for myself, protect myself, fight for myself. I guess you Southerners call it little scrapper. I was a little scrapper. I was such a little scrapper that I didn't realize that what I'm doing is that I was relying upon me instead of God. So when I had my children, and they grew a little bit, we got a house in Orlando, and of course God worked that all out. It was great, it was beautiful. And then one day, I was sitting in church, and God said to me, I was having problems paying my bills, you know. One thing after the other broke down. Who knew when you have a house? I grew up in apartments. You call the super. Super comes and fix it. You got a house, you got to pay. It break down, you got to pay somebody to fix it. And if you don't know how to fix it, you're in trouble. Luckily, God gave me people that would go ahead and do things at less cost and blah, blah, blah and everything, but it still cost. I still went through, and it just kept sucking out my finances, and I couldn't recover. And eventually I became late on my mortgage. And then it just spiraled after that. It was like one after the other. It just kept getting worse, 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 worse. So I sat in church and I was like, Lord, I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to lose. He said, I want you to understand something, Susan. I'm the one who gave you the house. No man can take your house away from you. Only if I allow it, if I say so. I said, oh, okay, that's great. All right. He says, and I say so, you're going to lose your house. I said, I'm sorry, Lord, did I do something wrong? He goes, no, this is not a punishment. The trial that I had to go through, I became homeless with my children. I lost my house. I first went down to West Palm Beach with a friend of mine. I was in her house and I bawled my eyes out. My children looked at me, asked me questions about what's next, Mom? What do we do next? I had to just keep asking. You see that song, Yes? That song, Yes, came on in the middle of everything. Boy, I was just like bawling. Bawling because I heard God say, are you going to say yes to me no matter what? Are you going to say yes to me no matter what, Susan? And I sat in my friend's house and I cried, and God said to me, you know now what it feels like to not have a home anymore. And I said, yes, Lord, I do. I started apologizing. I repented. I did everything. I was like, I'm sorry, because I didn't want my children to suffer for my sins. And he says, I want you to stop thinking like that, because that's not what this is about. I'm not punishing you. He goes, Susan, not one day will you sleep in the streets with your children. Not one day will you sleep in your car. You will have a roof over your head. And I was like, so why am I going through this? He goes, well, for a couple of things. One, you will now be able to identify when people say they're homeless. Your heart will go out to them a little differently. Even my children, their heart goes out to homeless people a little different. Two, I want you to rely upon me. I'm going to open every door for you. I'm going to provide for you. He was going to feed me like ravens, like what he did for Elijah. He says, I made you a promise to you and your children. I'm not going to let it go. He said, but there's a pride that sits on you, that you developed, that you can do this, and there's nothing in this world that you can't do. And he said, Susan, it's not about you. It's about what I want you to do. You need to learn to rely upon me. So you're not to tell anybody in New York, none of your family, about what you're going through. Because if you tell them, they will send money to try to help you. I am your provider, and I'm going to show you. Well, let me just tell you, it was like somebody was peeling the skin off of my body. Do you understand? I had to trust in this voice that I'm not even sure if I was sane. I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, really, I think I might be a little cracked. It's only insane people going to do something like this. And he said to me, I need you to trust me on this journey. It was the biggest trust. He showed me the mustard seed. He goes, I want you to have this much faith, that I will get you through this. Oh, we went through some things, and surely enough, people opened their homes to us. We went to another friend of mine. Well, she had cats. I'm sorry for cat people. I don't do well with cats. Sorry, Luce. I'm allergic to cats. Sorry, Willie. And to me, they're creepy, okay? They know they're spiteful little animals, okay? And my friend had cats. And I said, oh, but I'm allergic. I'm allergic, God. He says, your allergies will not act up while you're there. I said, oh. She made a beautiful bed for us. We had a meal, a place to stay. We didn't stay there long, but we did, because he touched her heart to open up. And then we wind up we were also living in a hotel too, and he provided money for the hotel. And then eventually he says, okay, that's enough of that. I need you to go and move to Brandon. I said, Brandon? He goes, oh, yes. So I had to leave West Palm. I came back to Orlando, stayed at my friend's house. From there, he said, I need you to go into Brandon now, and I want you to stay in that hotel there. He even he showed me a coupon. It was a coupon that I found that for 3 or 4 nights that we were going to pay for. I was like, oh my goodness. He gave me the money for 3 or 4 nights. I think it was about 4 nights. Went to the Holiday Inn over there off of Regency. There's a Holiday Inn over there. We stayed in there. Day 1. What do we do now? He was teaching me to follow his voice and be obedient to what he says. He says, okay, now I want you to go. As I was driving, he says, you see that phone number? I want you to call that phone number on the side of the road. I was like, it was just a little stick standing there. It was a phone number. If you need a home, call this number. I was like, oh God, I don't even know what I'm calling. He goes, call it. Okay, I called it. It turned out to belong to an apartment complex. I never seen an apartment complex advertised on the side of the road on a white cardboard, written in handwriting, a phone number. I was like, how legit is this? You know, I am from New York. I think everything is a scam. Okay. Walked in there, over there in Kings and Oakfield, walked over there, walked in. It was a woman from Louisiana. She had the most bluest eyes I've ever seen. It was like the water. Well, she instantly fell in love with us. And she was just like, well, we're going to make it happen, give you an apartment. I was like, well, where am I going to get the money from? And so he goes, now I'm going to tell you. So he opened up these different doors for me to get the money. First month's rent and deposit and everything else. By the end of the 4 days, I had a home with my children. And we started our life in Brandon. 4 days. I'd never seen anything like that happen. Even the woman was shocked. She was like, it normally takes a couple of weeks to do an application to get it. She goes, but I don't know. There's just something about you and these 2 children. I'm just going to make this happen for you. And sure enough, she did. She knew the owner and she called and put in a good word for us. Just like that, the doors opened. Just like that, things happened. Just like that. because I dared to have the belief of a mustard seed, and it grew into that. That's just one of hundreds of stories that I have of God making things happen. So here it is, now we have this new place. My kids start the Brandon High School and all these different things and everything else. But we started doing life. And of course we had other trials and things like that. And God got us through those trials and, and everything else. And I went to Southeastern. But the point that I want to make about this story is this, that I stood my ground even when it seemed insane to me. Because it wasn't my idea. It was never my plan or my idea to be out of a home with my 2 children. And can I tell you what I went through? I felt like a failure. Fear gripped my heart like you would not believe. My brain raced every day because I needed to know what was the next step, and God wasn't telling me the next step. That's what it means to rely upon God. I understood the scriptures when it talked about when God fed the Israelites with manna, and he said, you can't look for the next day. You can't hoard the food for the next day because then it will go bad. They had to wait to be fed the next day. Well, that's what it felt like. I had to wait to get instruction because he wasn't giving me the plan. He didn't say, Susan, you're going to do this, 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 and this. No, each day as it came, that's when he told me. Until I got to Brandon, and then he opened up a little bit more. But I had to walk through that. I had to walk through the fear to the point where I truly believe that it left a little bit of trauma on all of us as a family. My kids, they dread even hearing the word homeless. But they don't understand this, that my journey is not their journey. And my children came to me with this huge promise that God had for them when he created them and gave them to me. What I went through was for me to learn, for me to grow. That doesn't mean that it will go on to my children. Doesn't mean that it will happen to you. It means it's my testimony. It is my walk. And I made it through with Jesus. So I want to leave you with this. I want you all to stop and think about whatever you go through in your life. If you could just simply look at those mustard seeds and think about having just a little bit of faith, as tiny as that, and just picture that he can shift it and turn it into this much faith. That's amazing. It is amazing. And even if you don't understand why certain things have happened, why this, why that, trust that he knows the beginning and the end. And what he sets in motion, he will make it happen. So if he brought 2 people together, he will make a way for them to be married. If he goes ahead and gives you a job, he'll make a way for you to do the job. If he gives you a child, he will make a way for the child. When God does something, he doesn't do it halfway. God wants everybody to listen to this. While you are worried about tomorrow, you need to worry about today. In fact, how about not worrying at all and leaving it in his hands? Because he is the one that can make it happen. Now, if you take it out of God's hands, you're the one that's going to cause certain things to happen to you. Not God, you. Because then you're taking it out of God's hands and you're trying to make things happen. I watched somebody do that, take it out of God's hands And I watched his marriage end because he took it out of God's hands and he made things happen for him his way. Trust God. Believe God. Listen to me. It's not easier said than done for me. I've walked through this and a whole lot of more trials. I know what I'm talking about. He's not going to leave you. He won't abandon you. And it may not look like what you want, but that's okay. You don't know what's going to come around the corner. You don't know what the reasons for what's happening. So I leave you with that. So I'm going to close off in prayer and I'm going to say, Father, thank you for this time. Holy Spirit, thank you for speaking to the people, Lord. Thank you that you still have 2 more weeks, next week and the following week, to drive home what you want to be said, Lord, about this walk, faith in the middle of despair. Thank you, Lord, that you have more to say and that you're trying to help people understand that it's all about holding on to you and not holding on to fear. It's about allowing you to make things happen, not human beings make things happen. Father, I thank you that you're speaking to the people. I pray that you continue to speak to their heart and speak to their mind. Calm their minds down and speak peace, Lord. Breathe peace on them. Father, we give you all the glory and praise for who you are. In Jesus' most wonderful name, amen. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak and being here at House for Healing the Nations. I want you all to have a wonderful week, and until next week for part 4 of Faith in the Middle of Despair. Bye-bye and have a wonderful day.